Thank you, Mayor Henderson. We're now live streaming.
Thank you, Mr. White. Right, firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners. The Hepburn Shire acknowledges the Dja Dja Wurrung as the traditional owners of the lands and waters on which we live and work. On these lands, Dja have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We recognise their resilience through dispossession, and it's a testament to their continuing culture and tradition, which is strong and thriving. We also acknowledge the neighbouring traditional owners, the Wurundjeri to our southeast and the Wadawurrung to our southwest, and pay our respects to all Aboriginal peoples, their culture and law. We acknowledge their living culture and the unique role they play in the life of this region. I now declare the meeting open, and we have present, we have Councillor Tony Clark, Councillor Shirley Cornish, Councillor Pat Hockey, Councillor Tim Driley, Councillor Brian Hood, and myself, Councillor Don Henderson, and we have an apology from Councillor Leslie Hewitt. All right, so officers present, we've got Mr. Ron Torres, he's the Director of Planning and Community, Bruce Lucas, Infrastructure and Delivery Director, Brooke Holmes, who's Director of People and Transformation. We have Mr. Chris White, and we have Rebecca Smith, who is the Governor's Manager of Governance and Risk. All right, councillors, that's it. Now I'm going to read out the statement of commitment. We, the councillors of the Hepburn Shire, declare that we will undertake on every occasion to carry out our duties in the best interests of the community, and that our conduct shall maintain the standards of the Code of Good Governance, so that we may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in this council by the people of the Hepburn Shire. I do have an apology, and I've already read that out to Councillor Leslie Hewitt. There are no apologies from any of the staff. So, councillors and staff, do we have any declarations of conflict of interest? Councillors, staff?
Through you, Mayor, just with the confidential item being the CEO KPI update, I'll obviously have a conflict of interest in that, so I won't be part of that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we come to the confirmation of minutes. And we have a recommendation before you. It's the minutes of the previous meeting of July. And that is the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 29th of July 2025, as previously circulated to councillors, be confirmed. Do I have a mover? Councillor Pat Hockey, have a seconder. Councillor Tim Driley. Right. I'll put that motion, councillors.
Yep.
All those in favour? That's Councillor Clark, Councillor Cornish, Councillor Hockey, Councillor Driley, Councillor Hood, and myself. I'm voting against that because I don't believe the minutes actually reflect what was said at the meeting. So, thank you. Now, public participation time. We don't have any
No speakers tonight.
No speakers tonight.
For petitions.
No petitions, no request to address council, no public questions. Yeah. So, officers' reports, 7.1, Western Renewables Link Environmental Effects Statement, council submission, and I call upon Mr. Ron Torres to introduce that.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. Councillors, this report is about a major infrastructure project for Western Victoria. It's one of the most significant proposals to affect that part of our state in a long time. It's known as the Western Renewables Link project, and what that is a proposed 190 kilometre overhead high voltage electricity transmission line that will span 6 council jurisdictions, starting from Bulgana in the northern Grampians right down to near northwest Melbourne in Sydenham. The proponent is a group called AusNet, and this report is about the process that this project is undergoing now and council's response to that process. So this project has been known about since around 2021. And at that time, in May 2021, council passed a resolution that effectively opposes this project, particularly in its overhead configuration. Council in its resolution strongly acknowledged and supported the transition to renewable energy and the need for new renewable energy infrastructure, but strongly opposed this proposal in its configuration because of the real distress and impact it would have on our farming and wider communities. And it passed a resolution to that effect. And today we are really implementing the effect of that resolution because we are involved in a process together with many other parties and communities known as an environmental effects statement process. It's a legislated process made possible by an act of Parliament, and effectively this is a process that the state government uses to assess major projects. The environmental effects statement process involves the exhibition of a plethora of technical documentation and many documents about the proposal itself. And that exhibition process has been running and concluded midnight last night. So all communities, councils and parties have had the opportunity to lodge a submission to this statutory process. Now, you're probably wondering why we're talking about it tonight beyond the deadline, and that's because Hepburn Shire Council, together with many other parties, have been granted an extension of time to lodge their submission. Given the complexity of this project and the limited 40 business day period, an extension of time was really necessary for many parties to provide a meaningful submission. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. I will now actually, our submission is attached to the report, but it's important to note that it is an interim, it's a holding submission. Hepburn Shire Council has been granted an extension of time until September 8 to lodge its final submission. But by necessity and by legislation, we've had to lodge an interim submission. Our submission will really reinforce the council resolution of 2021 opposing this project in its proposed overhead configuration, and it will contain the key issues that we intend to rely on in our comprehensive submission that we're currently preparing and will submit. These key issues include the significant likely impacts of the proposal on tourism within the Shire, the increased risk of bushfire or wildfire caused by the proposal, and the impact of the proposed towers on the capacity and safety to mitigate those risks. The visual impact on the amenity of our residents and visitors to the Shire will also focus on the impact on prime agricultural land within the Shire and the impacts on biodiversity and habitat. There are a number of social impacts that we have identified that our comprehensive submission will cover, together with an emphasis on the imperative for the transmission infrastructure to be placed underground rather than overhead. That can help mitigate the many significant impacts of this project. So What we intend in the attachment is to build on those key issues, elaborate on them in our final submission, and subsequently to assemble a team of an advocate and subject matter experts to defend council's position on those topics. And that will play out starting in October. A 9-day hearing will play out where all submitters will have the opportunity to present their submissions before an independent panel. That panel will then assess everything it's heard, assess all the documentation that's been provided, and present a recommendation to the Victorian State Government, who will make an independent decision on this project. Thank you, Mayor Henderson.
Right, right, councillor, you've heard the introduction. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Dryly?
Thanks, Ron. I'm certainly like to commend officers in the community for the considerable amount of work that's gone into presenting this report. And obviously that work's ongoing at the moment to the last minute because it's been a very short window of opportunity to get submissions together. And I commend the working group that has been very actively working with council as well in the efforts they have gone to turn up every month or even twice a month at the moment to diligently work through the capacity, the different angles of this project, which there are many problems that we've seen and that previous council supported. So it's my question is around through your experience of this 10,000 plus page document. You obviously, I think there are some gaps in terms of the information that we're being presented to assess ourselves around this this project, and I was wondering if you could reflect on some of those deficiencies that have really driven some of the objections to the way that our communities have been treated through this process.
Through the chair, our proposed submission, and you'll see it in this interim attachment, is really focused on Hepburn Shire unique attributes and impacts. It would be impossible for any party to comment on every issue raised in the documentation that's been presented in the EES process. So really it's about what matters most to Hepburn Shire and what are the biggest impacts it will have. Having said that though, many of the technical documents have been proponent-led and have been sort of project-focused rather than community-focused. And through our initial assessment, we've identified many gaps in terms of information and analysis of issues from a community's perspective. And that's the type of thing we've identified as a gap, and that's the type of thing we'll be focusing on in our submission. So the other aspect, there's a proposed planning control aspect to this. We similarly have identified some illogical sort of layouts of the proposed planning controls. We find them excessive in terms of their coverage and not isolated to the physical proximity to the project. So these are the sorts of things that we're drawing out in our submission and subsequent panel presentation.
I'll come back.
Another question, councillor Hood, you've got a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the report, Mr. Torres. In my view, it sums up council's strong position very succinctly. And we have done a lot of work on this on behalf of the community. It's in their best interests. My question goes to the resourcing that we are continuing to put behind this. And also in the interest of transparency, could you indicate what the appropriate funding is for this EES process? The report in a couple of places describes the funding as appropriate in the budget. But for the sake of transparency and in order to quantify just the strength of our position, could you indicate the cost of this process, please?
Through the chair, councillors, I can assure you that the work we've done to date and the work that's coming up will be done within budget that's been allocated to this opposition process. The budget, I believe, has an allocated amount of $145,000 to it, with a carryover from previous financial years of around $45,000. So we'll be able to comfortably operate within that budget with our advocacy and expert representation.
Any other councillor? If not, councillor Drawley, the second question.
Mr. Torres, I'm particularly interested in terms of our position around a few things. The undergrounding aspect that we're advocating for, in light of the obvious increased cost with that option, and whether partial undergrounding is a better alternative, given that there are some more sensitive areas available potentially throughout the route, and secondly, how our submission sort of really meets our objectives around the energy transition and the imperative for us to really get that right, and the urgency of that, given that potentially going to see a federal report released sometime in the near future that really demonstrates just how urgent that case is to get on with this transition.
Through the chair, this report and council's stance is not against the transition to renewable energy. That's reflected in the 2021 council resolution, that council actually supports the transition to renewable energy and its associated infrastructure. What council is against, and what is captured in this report, is the overhead configuration of this proposal and the potential disastrous impacts on our community and our landscape and our biodiversity. The 2021 resolution emphatically opposes an overhead solution and supports an underground solution, and that's reflected in the attachment that you have before you. Throughout the panel hearing process, there will be questions such as that, Councillor Dryeley, on, well, what if a full undergrounding in Hepburn Shire is impossible? What would be the compromise position? And we might be required to answer that. And whilst I don't have a definitive answer for councillors tonight yet, through our expert witness, we'll be able to come up with an answer, and most likely that answer will be, well, should this project be approved by the state government? We would highly recommend that parts of the project be made underground, particularly in sensitive areas that are sensitive either in a biodiversity sense, a heritage sense, or an environmental sense, such as areas prone to bushfire or flooding and so on. So that could be an outcome of this process.
Mr. Torres, a lot of the media and the opposition has been around the value of our farmland, and heritage is important, but perhaps in a community such as ours going into the future, food's going to be a premium. And is it so that particularly affect our shire, because of the route of the power line would have a direct detrimental effect on the viability of some of the farms, and the productivity of some of the farms, and perhaps the crops that they could produce.
Absolutely, Mayor Henderson. That is strongly put in our interim submission at item 3.4, where we identify that the proposed route will affect some of our most economically significant and sensitive farmland areas. Farmland that is not only significant to this shire, but strategically important to the state. So the section I just quoted references that the land affected, most of the land affected is Class 1 farmland, which is the highest level of productive land in a recent agricultural land capability assessment. So the potential impacts are very real.
Right, any other councillor? If not, I'm looking for a motion. Councillors, you have the motion there before you. Do I have a mover? Move Councillor Clark. And a seconder? Councillor Hockey. Councillor Clark, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, just very briefly, just to congratulate the both to reflect Councillor Dryley's view of comments to great job for and the way also the councillors work with the community and the significant input the community has put in to do this. I think it's been tremendous, and that's showing up.
Yes, now, just to be sure, the motion is the one, the officer's recommendation, the one before you. That is in the agenda. So that's the one you're moving.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hockey.
Yes, I'd like to acknowledge the community engagement and the officers' work and the public sessions too, and just draw attention to what I think is a concern, that there's community concern about a listed oak tree in Kingston, and there's a puzzle about it because we don't have access to a precise map, and yet that tree is named as one that must go. So the inference there is in existence a precise map somewhere. So just like to raise that as an issue, and yet another issue of concern.
Thank you, Councillor Hockey. Councillor Hood, I see you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, excuse me. I'd like to move an amendment to Councillor Clark's motion by adding 2 words to point number 1. And the 2 words are and reaffirms. So it should read that council notes and reaffirms council's resolution of May 2021.
So notes and reaffirms. Okay, thank you. You've heard that amendment. Do I have a seconder from anyone?
You need to talk.
Seconded Councillor Hood. Councillor Trott, sorry. Councillor Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll make it clear that I'm very supportive of the officer's recommendation and the position that's outlined before us. And while we should note the strong position taken by council back in May 2021, I think it's also very important and opportune time to reinforce that position that we took some 4 years ago, and send a very clear signal to our community that we are supporting them. We stand by that original resolution, which in brief signalled our commitment to renewable energy, but also our strong opposition to the project as it's planned, as we've heard tonight. So I think it's very important that not only do we note the position taken 4 years ago, but that we reinforce and reaffirm our stance on that.
Councillor Dryley, did you wish to speak? No. Councillor Cornish, you've had your hand up.
Well, I don't want to really do a point of order because I can't give you the actual clause in the meeting procedure.
Try it out.
I'm trying to say that shouldn't Councillor Clark have accepted the amendment first?
Necessarily? Not necessarily. Any councillor has the right to move an amendment whilst the thing's being debated.
But it's an amendment.
But But if councillor Clark and councillor Dryly were to accept those, the inclusion of those words, there would be no need for the amendment. We have had the amendment moved and seconded.
If I can, yeah, so got a request for an amendment. I would ask the mover of the motion if he's happy to accept it. Therefore, there won't be a need for any debate on the inclusion of those words. I think if we do that process, we'll be clear whether the original mover and seconder are happy to accept them. And if they are, that would become the motion on the table. And then we would go to debate of that motion.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was just a bit confused. I thought I needed clarity. Thank you.
that's all right. So councillor Clark, do you accept those extra words?
I am happy to accept it. I do want it noted that in future I would greatly appreciate Councillor Hood and any other councillor doing this to provide a little bit of notice. Providing us with that notice can be challenging at times, but certainly I do absolutely support the motion that's there.
Councillor Dryly, do you accept the inclusion? Okay, well, the mover and the seconder, that becomes the motion. So councillors, you have the motion before you with the inclusion of notes and reaffirms supporting the transition of that council decision. So here we are.
We don't have it, sorry, Mayor, we don't have it up on the screen, which is
We don't
fine,
have
but
it.
it is the officer's, I believe, the officer's recommendation. And at point 1, it would now be notes and reaffirms council's resolution of May 2021, and then unchanged from there, just for clarity.
Okay. We're all clear on what we're debating? Okay, so any other councillor wish now to debate the issue? Councillor Cornish.
I think it's just such a major issue that I know we supposedly should be debating if we're speaking, but I think it's important to make a few points here by including a couple of words from Councillor Hood. It's certainly very important to recognise the work done by the former council, but at the same time, it's also to recognise that this current council agrees with the former council. So there's a great consistency there, and the community need to see that. About the Algerian oak tree, as a council, we did have a discussion with council officers tonight and yesterday. I had a discussion about the historical value of the Algerian oak tree and other structures in the Shire. And I'm very pleased that I've been given some assurances that in our final submission there may be reference to important structures and environmental issues and trees. And this one has been mentioned in the report, this tree. The community have been lobbying quite hard to save the tree, and this council supports our community in doing so. I also just want to quickly state, if I could have 1 minute extra, just one, I might just go over a little bit, not much. If this proposal is approved by the government, as I see it, it contradicts their own policies, environmental policies, Heritage Victoria, many policies, and also our own planning scheme where we have environmental overlays here. So there's a contradiction to suit themselves. And I think we need some consistency from the state government to support our own planning scheme and also what is of historical and environmental significance to us as a council in our planning scheme, in our policies, and to our community. They've made it quite clear they want that. So I'm hoping in the end that we will be able to maintain and keep what's important to us. And what we have looked after since the gold rush days, really. Some of these structures and trees are over 150, 170 years old. It's important. That's what identifies us as a council. So this is what I needed to say. That's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Cornish. You've stuck pretty well to the time anyway.
Oh, thank you, John.
Right, is any other councillor? No other council, all right. No other councils, I'm going to put it. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We now move on to 7.2. Which is the awarding of a contract 2703-011 bulk fuels and fuel cards. Councillor Hockey, I believe you were introducing this.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, so council's existing contract via Procurement Australia for the supply and delivery of bulk fuels has expired. So a new tender process has recently been undertaken by PA on behalf of councils. Officers recommend entering into the updated PA contract for the supply of diesel to the Daylesford and the Creswick depot sites to support the operation of large plant and equipment and operational vehicles delivering core services to the community. It is noted that although the new PA contract covers other fuel types and now incorporates fleet cards, it is only intended to purchase diesel supplies via this particular contract, and existing arrangements are in place for the other components of the tender. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? No questions? Right, if there's no questions, you have a motion there before you. In the as printed in the agenda. Those in favour? You can debate it. I'll let you debate it.
No, don't know.
All right. Do we have a mover?
I'll move.
Moved, councillor Cornish, seconded. Councillor Hockey. All right, councillor Cornish.
I don't have anything to add.
Councillor Hockey.
No.
No. Any other councillor? No other councillors. I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? I'll declare that carried unanimously. Okay. The next one is 7.3, the award tender RTF 2025.OP05 supply and delivery of a road maintenance unit. No, got you to
I'll
actually.
go again. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, so council's 2025-2026 plant replacement program includes the purchase of a road maintenance unit to replace the existing plant operated by the works team for sealed road maintenance. A request for tender was released in the public market in July of this year, and a total of 3 submissions were received and assessed by the evaluation panel. Following a detailed evaluation and consideration of alternate service delivery options, it is recommended that council accept the submission from Isuzu Ballarat for the supply and delivery of a road maintenance unit. Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Driley.
Question around, given the cost of this vehicle in comparison to others that we might purchase, just to maybe for the community's benefit, some elaboration on the need and the importance of this vehicle within the fleet.
Thank you, Councillor Dryling, through the chair. You are correct, Councillor. It's a significant outlay for what is a sophisticated and specialised piece of equipment. So the vehicle that we're talking about is a single person operated sealed road patching vehicle. So it does all of our edge repairs, our pothole patching. It does some resurfacing of some sealed roads using emulsion, and it's effectively on the road every working day, patrolling our sealed road network. It is a vehicle that has an independently built, specialised back part to the truck that has a hopper to carry aggregate. It also carries bulk emulsion, and then under high velocity mixes those two products to, if you like, under pressure patch the sealed road surface. And it's all operated remote control from within the cab of the vehicle, which does enhance safety for employees without having to interact with traffic in the middle of the road, and gives us what we think is a more efficient patching operation overall compared to some other approaches.
Any questions, councillors? Okay, I take it that we might be able to hire that out to Vic roads, because a lot of the potholes that we see complained about are Vic roads, rather than anything else.
On weekends.
Okay, so
I'd like to ask one more question there. On that matter, addressing that issue of betterment, and how does this vehicle sort of fit into that model of trying to build back better wherever possible, or is this sort of an interim fix-up?
Councillors, this vehicle is designed to fix potholes or edge breaks on sealed roads. So it's effectively fixing a defect. It's not there for construction purposes or building back better. It's about fixing isolated defects or deterioration in the existing road network. Council's capital renewal program, reconstruction, or in the case of gravel roads, our gravel resurfacing program, are where we look to do those more significant works and potentially build back better, whether that be through emergency response recovery programs, or in fact council's own program.
any other questions, councillors?
Just one, no?
Yes, councillor Cornish?
Just a question on how council staff has demonstrated a sustainable and socially responsible procurement in the report, and what initiatives from the policy are considered in it.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the chair, when council is considering the purchase of new equipment, we look at environmental requirements such as emissions control, fuel consumption, noise emissions, all those sorts of elements, which are requirements under the EPA Act, and are a requirement for every vehicle to be within the EPA requirements and the EPA regulations for any vehicle that is on a public road. So we monitor that through regular maintenance and servicing. That's undertaken through a warranty period for vehicles like this. We also have monitoring with our ongoing daily operations, or the operators, through observation and pre-start checks that are undertaken each day by the operators.
Any other, councillor Huff?
Just one, Mr. Lucas, through the chair. Are we seeing more incidents of potholes after these cycles of wet and dry? Are we actually seeing an increase? Has that been quantified?
I can provide councillors, I can take on notice and provide some more data on that. It's certainly cyclic in terms of you will see a greater proliferation of potholes after an extended wet period.
Yeah.
So through winter and early spring, you would typically see increased occurrence of potholes. And if you allow a road to deteriorate to a certain point, then obviously you will see a significant increase in the number of potholes as well, which is why council's capital program for our annual resealing program. So we spend $1 million odd per annum on resealing our bitumen roads. And if we were to compromise that or reduce that and allow those sealed surfaces to oxidise and crack a little bit more, which then increases the water penetration, that also impacts the proliferation of potholes. But I can circulate some data on the current condition of our sealed road network. The most recent asset condition assessment we undertook said or demonstrated to us that our sealed road network was in a pretty reasonable condition.
That's an independent assessment.
That's correct.
Mr. Thomas has some additional information.
And favourite job for Mr. Lucas, because I've actually got that stats in front of me, which haven't been shared yet. So, but just given a number of questions around potholes and the road conditions, it's really pleasing. So, as Mr. Lucas spoke about, our condition of our sealed roads is within our condition 98.4% of our roads. So really, really significant, and also really pleasing. And this is a stat that councillors haven't seen, but will be in our annual report. The number of customer requests for relations of sealed road requests, and this is where we see people making complaints about potholes and encouragement, has seen a remarkable decrease over the last 4 years. So I'm saying there is a 50% reduction in 4 years in the amount of requests. and a 25% reduction in the amount of requests. Now, I'm not saying that every road, every minute of the day is in an amazing condition, and we all know potholes up here. But our roads on Hepburn Shire council controlled roads continue to be in a very, very high standard. And that is raw data that'll be in our annual report. All roads in the condition of 98.4% and a 50% reduction in the number of customer request complaints about the conditions of our sealed roads. So it is because of the investment that is proposed tonight that has allowed us to put significant investment into our roads over a number of years now.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Sorry, Mr. Thomas. Any further questions, councillors? Yeah, Councillor Cornish.
Just one, basically for the public and those folk that are watching. Just a clarification on what is Vic Roads roads. Now, we've got Midland Highway, we've got Gillies Road that I understand is not a council maintained roads. And there's been a lot on social media about people complaining about potholes. This, I understand, these are not our roads or our responsibility. So maybe if Mr. Lucas can correct me if I'm wrong, or?
Through the chair, thank you, councillor. You're right. So freeways, highways are the responsibility of the Department of Transport, so state government, including all of the Category C roads. So when you look at route numbering of the road network, all of the C class roads are through Hepburn Shire are the responsibility also of the Department of Transport. Those roads are individually listed on our website for public access as well. And we did, through the most recent community satisfaction survey, ask those questions when residents were canvassed around road conditions. We did seek to understand which roads specifically, and the arterial road, the Category C road network, ranked fairly highly in the feedback.
Thank you. Just, I think it's important for people to understand.
Thank you, Councillor Cornish. Any other councillor? All right, I'm looking for a motion. You can move that. Motion. Councillor Clark, move. Seconded. Councillor Hockey. Councillor Clark, do you wish to say that?
No, done nothing else to say.
Yep.
No, nothing
Hockey,
to add.
nothing. Any other councillor? No, all right, I'm going to put it. Those in favour? Those against? I'll declare that carried unanimously. Now move on to 7.4. Review of policy 84C. Councillor Gifts, Benefits, Hospitality Policy, Directed Performance, and that's going to be the course done by the Council of Performance and Transformation, and it's going to be introduced by Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Mayor. The Local Government Act 2020 required council to adopt a councillor gift policy within 6 months of when the section came into effect on the 24th of October 2020. This policy was last adopted in April 2021 and is due to be reviewed this year. The policy is intended to support councillors to avoid conflicts of interest and maintain high levels of integrity and public trust, and demonstrate councillors' commitment to transparency in the disclosure of receipt of gifts, benefits and hospitality. This policy is separate to requirements upon staff to declare associated gifts as per the Staff Code of Conduct.
Thank you, Councillor Cornish. All right, and introduce. Any questions, Councillor? No question? No, Councillor.
Just one, this is just to confirm that this complies with all the various state legislation and best practice. Yep.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? If not, Councillor Dryly.
The question around acknowledging that we do have an existing policy around this, and that just confirming that there are any sort of minor changes to this document.
Through the chair, correct, yes, and we are required to ensure that we do review and update that regularly to maintain that compliance with legislation. and ensure that. So this is brought back under that purpose and to make sure that we are reviewing it in accordance with our policy requirements in the Local Government Act.
Good. Holmes. Any other councillor? No question. No? I'm looking for a motion then.
I'll move the officer's recommendation.
So councillor Cornish has moved, seconded.
Seconded.
Councillor Hockey. Right, councillor Cornish. Councillor Hockey.
No, nothing to add.
Any other councillor? Okay, no other councillor. So I'm going to put the motion. You've got it there before you. Those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Records of councillor attendance. Merely a procedural matter. Council, the opposite recommendation is the council receives and notes, records the council attendance as detailed in the report. Any questions, councillors? No questions? All right, I'm looking for a motion that we receive and note the report. Move councillor Clark, seconded councillor Cornish. Councillor Clark?
No.
Councillor Gray? No. Any other councillor? No? All right. I'm going to put it. Those in favour? Those against? They're carried unanimously. So we now move to item 8. There's no items of urgent business. The council and CEO reports. So the mayor gets to give a report. So I recently attended a conference where rural councils from across Victoria heard from various speakers on a range of topics that affect us. Great interest was that most, if not all, councils were going through a period where they were expected to do more with less assistance from federal and state governments. In many cases, councils were unable to continue funding what in essence are programs that are really not the domain of local government, such as housing and aged care. We heard from a major social and affordable housing organisation. One of the biggest problems facing them was not really the availability of suitable land, but planning and building delays, as well as lack of funding to actually build the houses. Costs of building and shortages of tradespeople was really a major inhibiting factor. Most councils are either cutting services in an attempt to make ends meet. I did send around the agenda to councillors that included speakers' presentations, and I also can say that Councillor Hewitt is on leave, has indicated she wishes to give a detailed report on some of the topics covered. As of note, Mr. Thomas gave a comprehensive report to the forum regarding the future financial sustainability of smaller councils in the current economic tight environment. There's no more important issue than the one we dealt with tonight's meeting regarding the Western Renewables Link. Most of our farmers and many others have been fighting to stop the damage to the viability of our valuable farmland. One of the issues seems to be the inability to do long-term maintenance of the towers and lines that already exist. Some farmers are already heavily impacted in that they cannot legally carry out essential farm operations due to ageing power lines and clearance tolerances for things like irrigation and spraying of crops. There are many other negative aspects to this project. I've had many distress calls and discussions regarding the Essential Services Volunteer Levy that has already been imposed on all of us, but as farmers and business will be most impacted. It is hoped that the 1-year reprieve for farmers due to the drought will become permanent. The fight must go on because of our farms are gone. Once our farms are gone, we'll become less sustainable because our food security will be severely compromised. On a final note, it's good to see that Dalesford and surrounding areas are getting close to having an assured, reliable water supply in place. There is also a major study into the extension of reticulated water to some of the smaller townships, such as Allendale and Broomfield. So fingers crossed that this works out. Thank you. Now, Councillor Dry, your report.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to everyone who keeps our civic and cultural life moving. Over the weekend, I took part in the Words in Winter Guerrilla Poetry Project, and the festival continues this week. Special thanks to the volunteers and artists who have built such a strong program. The quality on show speaks to the resilience of our artists and community at a time when creative voices and resources continue to come under attack. I'll proudly attend the Understanding Palestine session this Saturday as part of the festival. Our creative community continues to hold space for big conversations as well as celebration, and I thank everyone involved. On climate in another capacity, I attended the Victorian Greenhouse annual conference. Councils are getting on with adaptation and decarbonisations, but we need the federal government to release the National Climate Risk Assessment before 2035 targets are set. Clear, transparent risk setting help communities like ours plan responsibly. Locally, the Daylesford Water Security Project has taken a step forward with 17 kilometres of pipeline connecting to the Goldfield Super Pipe being completed. And the next stage focus on treatment plant upgrades. After the drought conditions we've experienced, this investment matters for reliability and quality. On energy transition, I too met with the Western Renewables Link Community Working Group this month. The EES is a vast and technical document, and I acknowledge officers and community members working through it. I continue to support renewables and the urgent need to decarbonise, but I do have serious concerns about the current overhead design's impacts on landscapes, biodiversity, and the need for more genuine community engagement and benefit. On housing and community assets, I visited Raylands Public Park with residents to hear their concerns and aspirations. While it's not in the current transfer properties proposed for sale, it is clearly a cherished public open space. More broadly, when Council considers property sales, I do remain a bit disappointed that an early intent to prioritise affordable housing outcomes was diluted to our potential. I also met with residents regarding the ongoing issues surrounding the DD06 overlay near the Daylesford transfer station, and I hear them on seeking a timely and genuine resolution to their concerns. I also toured the Hepburn Bathhouse ahead of reopening. It looks great, and the locals' passes are a real win for access and wellbeing. Also recently attended the first session of the MAB Leading Communities Through Housing Change Masterclass. And separately, I've been reading the Uhuri's recent report urging councils to add a fourth R, which is resilience, to our traditional remit. I'll bring that resilience lens to our housing and planning discussions alongside clear information, empathetic engagement and practical pathways that build social license. And finally, thank you for the many invitations we've received as councillors, and I do sometimes have to find a balance between other work and wish I could attend everything, but I do want to remain accessible and committed to listening and acting for our community, and you can contact me anytime.
Thank you, Councillor Drylie. Councillor Ewett's not here, so Councillor Pat Hockey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, recently I had an opportunity to be shown some of the issues with the Clune Sports Ground. Their current shortcomings are creating an immense amount of work in set up and pack down at every home game, as the club has no club rooms, and on game day everything must be assembled on the basketball courts. I've got to pay tribute to the extraordinary work there for the volunteers behind the Clune's netball and football teams. I saw the last home game of the footy season when the Clune seniors gave top team Daylesford a decent scare halfway through the game at the end of what was a really solid season. So the voluntary work that goes into keeping our sports teams on track week after week is phenomenal, and only a deep love of the community can explain this level of commitment. The council has also recently had a tour of the Daylesford Town Hall, and we found a building that, to my mind, that was pretty much in the same state internally as it was after World War II, only now completely worn out and dilapidated and unable to be used. It's common for folk to tell me that the problem is that Daylesford gets all the money, but this was quite confronting. And I noted that Daylesford does not have a functioning town hall. The library operates out of an old shop and is run down with the weatherboards rotting and about a third of the size the building should be. Finally, there is a huge fight to bring over the Emergency Services Volunteer Fund levy. Primary producers are facing a 150% increase in the variable part of the levy, based on a cents in the dollar increase per $1,000 of CIV. There is a proposed rebate for this up to the property value of $5 million and applicable to current active CFA members. The form of the bill made it clear that the rebate would only be applied to the value of the property where the title included the residence. Any other titles held by the same farmer would receive the full cost of the levy. This has since been qualified, but in such a vague way as to leave lots of uncertainty. Crucially, it is indexed to property value over which family farmers have no control, rather than income. In the case of the latter, it might at least be serviceable, but arguably any increase of 150% on any tax is unjustifiable in one hit in any context. And finally, thank the heavens for today's rain.
Thank you, councillor Hockey. Right, so next we've got councillor Brian Hood.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors and Mayor, the main concern and feedback that I'm receiving from the community is, of course, the combined impact of the increase in rates as people are now receiving their rates notices, and as others commented on the very significant increase in the essential services and volunteers levy. And of course, that is occurring in the context of reduced services. It's something, no doubt, we were going to have to monitor very closely going forward, both from a council point of view to make sure that cash flow is as we expect, but also in the interest of our community members to make sure that people are taking advantage of the payment plans and other processes that we have in place, because it certainly is hitting hard, and it's something that we'll have to keep a very sharp focus on going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hood. Okay, next we have councillor Tony Clark.
Thank you very much, Mayor. This month has been it's been a very busy month, both personally and council. I would like to extend a thanks to the cinema group and also to the council officers who are continuing some ongoing talks, and I think hopefully that will set a really good example of how community groups can work with us as councils as we move forward to share ideas and work together. And I was also very pleased to visit, as mentioned by Councillor Hockey, the town hall and library, and actually get to witness firsthand some of the challenges that we face in a resource constrained environment, but also with with a vibrant community that want to use things. I've also been working with some small businesses and directing them to council, which is great, and some of those interactions are leading to some really positive things with some new growth here, hopefully in Daylesford in the coming months, which with also some job creation as well, because I think the economic side of things we need to constantly work on. And finally, it was very pleasing to work with the inclusion team a couple of weeks ago as we prepare for some disability awareness type strategies and campaigns with our local community around access to footpaths, things around overgrown walkways and what they actually mean to people. I'm looking forward to seeing some really positive things from that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Clark. Councillor Cornish.
Thank you. On the 11th of August, I attended a Zoom meeting. I think councillor Hockey did as well, about with the United Firefighters Union, and not in our name as well. And it's about the Essential Services Levy, and it's a follow on from the conference that was held in Moonee Valley. So both councillor Hockey and I attended this. It went on for quite a few hours. Just in summary, there was a breakdown of media coverage. Peter Marshall chaired the meeting, and he also spoke about the conference in Moonee Valley and outlined the speakers on the day. It was the impact on the community was also discussed, being namely the mental health of farmers and partners, the impact on families that the levy would have, the ratepayers that can't pay, how councils are impacted by collecting the levy, financial hardship, and discussed rate notice, the requirement for collection by local government. There was also a motion passed at the meeting, and this is where this was for a delegation of 3 rural councillors, 3 metro and 3 regional councillors to be part of that delegated group, and they did vote in those members. So there is a working committee functioning as we speak. Now, also what I did this month was attend the Glenline Progress Association AGM, and they did vote in. All positions were vacant at this AGM. So there are new members now. And the President reflected on a busy and productive year, sharing highlights that included successful grant applications. She asked me to pass on thanks to Council and Council officers and our CEO for the successful grant. And that grant allowed them to set up a website for the Glenline community. So that website is now up and running, so that can be accessed online. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cornish. Thanks, councillors, for being very good on times tonight. Okay, 9.3, Chief Executive Officer's report. Mr. Thomas. Oh, forget that. Forgot that last one. Now to receive those reports, can someone move the receipt of those reports and notes from mayors and councillors? Sure. Councillor Hockey, seconded. Councillor.
Okay.
Councillor Cornish. Those in favour? Those against? Okay, that carried unanimous. Now we'll go to the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. There is a written report in the agenda, and also I'd like to acknowledge that I've returned from 2 weeks annual leave. So thank you to Mr. Lucas, who ably filled in over the last couple of weeks. There's certainly lots happens in the local government sector at Hepburn in only 2 short weeks. 3 things I just want to do a shout out to staff in particular. There's lots going on across the organisation, but 3 particular projects I just wanted to shout out. Been touched on in terms of rate notices. So particular thanks to our finance teams and our customer experience teams who have been diligently putting information together to get high quality rate notices out there and taking a number of calls. So fantastic work with them. I want to thank our facilities team in particular, who projects sort of come out of the unexpected project in terms of the bathhouse and works that needed to be associated with that. And that's been a really difficult project to be sort of landed on our shoulders, but particularly fantastic work to be able to deliver high quality and get that fantastic tourism asset and community asset up and running really quickly to a high standard. And then also it was touched on tonight, and thank you councillors, in terms of the Western Renewables link in this submission. And I can't undersell to councillors and to the community the amount of work that has gone into that, and really technical, hard to understand work as well. So councillors mentioned in terms of the community group, but particularly to our planning team, and it is our planning team that really have put together the bulk of the work in relation to that submission. So particularly, as I said, thank you to staff right across the organisation, but they're just 3 that I wanted to draw attention for, and then I'll put a sneaky plug in if you have a look. There's a number of job vacancies available at the moment. So you get to come and work at Hepburn Shire and enjoyed working on a number of those key projects. So jump onto our website and have a look if you're interested in any of the roles. Thanks, councillors.
Thank you. I'm now looking for a motion to receive and note the Chief Executive Officer report. Councillor Clark, seconded, or Mr. Secretary? No, Councillor Hockey. All right, those in favour? Those against, declare that carried unanimously. Okay, we now move to the confidential items. 10.1, the closure of meeting to members of the public. Pursuant to section 66(1), the Local Government Act 2020, the Act, council or delegated committee must keep a meeting open to the public unless the council or delegated committees consider it necessary to close the meeting to the public because of a circumstance specified in subsection (2) applies. The circumstances detailed in 66(2) of the Act are: the meeting is to consider confidential information, or for security reasons, or it's necessary to do so to enable the meeting to proceed in an orderly manner. So I've now got a recommendation that in accordance with section 66 brackets 1 and 66 brackets 2 brackets A of the Local Government Act 2020, the meeting is to be closed to the public for the consideration of the following items. 1.1 CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee CEO KPI update. Because it is personal information, being information which is released would result in the unreasonable disclosure of information about any person and their personal affairs. The ground applies because it relates to the employment and contract of the Chief Executive Officer. So I'm looking for a motion to close the meeting. Councillor Cornish, seconded Councillor Hockey. Those in favour? I declare that carried unanimously. Right, well, now thank everybody for their attendance at the public meeting, and for those watching. I hope it was an interesting meeting, and certainly commend all of the motions that were passed tonight. Thank you. All right, now declare the meeting closed.
To the public.
Public.
Yep, the meeting will continue once we leave, and we'll get Mr. White to make sure that we're not live streaming.
Thank you, everyone. I'll stop the live stream and come back when we're ready to go.